Okay, guys, welcome back. Long time no see. It's been a while since we did a Raid Shadow Legends video. Well, it's been a while since I did a Raid Shadow Legends video anyway. But after kind of noticing that, the Campaign Farmers video got a lot of views, I still play Raid. I play it every day. And, I've really been wanting to make more content for it. So I wanted to kind of do another champion spotlight for the Campaign Farmers. And today we're going to go over Galek and Elhain. So the last time we did Kale and Aethel, and found out that really between the two there aren't a whole lot of differences in how they farm campaign, especially brutal stage 3 of stage 12-3. It really, between those two, it didn't matter. But what about Elhain and Galek? Elhain and Galek are two very different style of champions. So with Elhain, she's a pure damage dealer. Her first A1 is an attacks one enemy, place an extra hit if the attack is critical. Her A2 is an attacks one enemy, then all enemies, has an extra 15% chance of inflicting a critical hit, just like the rest of the starter champions. And hers places a 30% increased crit rate buff on this champion for 3 turns if a target is killed. Then, of course, Valley of Death, her A3. This is her bread and butter. This is how she's going to clear those waves, how she's going to clear a lot of things. She's also a good arena nuker because of this. Attacks all enemies 2 times. That is a 2-time hitter on an AoE. So it does a good amount of damage. She's not going to hit like Trunda levels or Magnar levels, but she is going to hit hard. You can build her as an arena nuker because she doesn't require any type of accuracy. You just go straight damage. So let's take a look. I made sure that the stat requirements for these campaign farmers were easily obtainable by anybody. So if we look, I have no accessories on whatsoever. I don't have any. Well, I have one 6-star piece just for that crit rate, but it's really, there's nothing else really super about it. It's a pretty standard piece. If you look at the total stats, these are all doable stats for anybody. Okay, as long as you've gotten to the point you're at 12-3, you can farm some of the dungeons a little bit. You can get this gear, and I tried to stay away from like perception sets and really hard to farm things like Savage and things like that. I wanted to make it free to play friendly. So you got lifesteal and speed. I think Galek may have, I don't remember if he's got, but they've both got lifesteal, because you're going to want lifesteal early on until you can start clearing them out. But so stats, 2,300, 2,400 or 24,000 total HP, pretty doable. I mean, really her base is 14,000. I'm only adding a small little bit amount to it. Her attack, not a lot either, guys. It's 2,200. It's a pretty low amount, even for where I'm at. Because if you look, I mean, I've only got an 8, a +8 piece here, +12 here, with defense. It's not even attack. This is gear I threw on solely for this right here to get the speed up. I didn't even need her accuracy. I just did it because it had speed on it. I did not do anything with these pieces that I would call in-game gearing. I didn't use an optimizer. I didn't worry about a lot of the stats. I worried about getting her speed to a certain point, which is around 200. I wanted her crit rate at 100%. And beyond that, that was really about it. You don't need a whole lot for a campaign farmer. And then you've got her defense is a measly 1,700. I think Galek's is like 1,500. Her speed, like I said, around 200, so you've got the 199. Her crit rate is actually too high, but like I said, I didn't use an optimizer. I just threw on gear. Her crit damage is 116, and that's because I used the mastery that gives her an extra 20%. Resist and accuracy are just there because they're not necessary. They're not needed. It was just because that's the gear I had. So let's look at Galek comparatively, and you'll see that his stats are pretty much on the same level. If you actually look at them, they're pretty similar. So he's got 25,000 HP, 2,300 attack, a little bit higher than Elhain, 1,500 defense, which is 200 lower, 180 speed, which is slower than Elhain, 109% crit rate, way too high, but it is what it is. You get what you need. 80% on the crit damage. It's not a whole lot. And then I got just enough accuracy to kind of land some of his stuff if he wanted to. 167. Honestly, you could build him without any accuracy, and he'd do just fine. Cross slash, pretty basic here. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Instead of a chance to do it, he always does it. It doesn't hit quite as hard in my opinion, but that may be how I got him built. Hellraiser attacks all enemies, has an extra 50% chance of inflicting a critical, like all other ones, and does a 30% increased speed buff on this champion for 2 turns. In my opinion, this makes him better than Elhain just in terms of self-buffing. Increased critical rates, not really as useful, because if you need that 30% increased rate to get a critical, then I mean you're kind of, you're missing out on a lot of damage. So because they're going to open up with this. This is what it's going to open up with 9 times out of 10. So you're going to have to use this ability, and then once you get the crit rate, then you can go into this one. That's not going to work in Arena. It's not going to work in a lot of places. You're going to want that crit rate to always be at 100%. So what's the point of having this in crit rate buff? It's going to be harder to kill him for one, but it just seems it seems so situational as to be pointless. But back to Galek. So he doesn't increase speed, speeding him up, which speed is king, and then attacks 4 times at random. It's not an AoE, but 4 times at random, has a 30% chance of placing a 30% decreased defense buff for 2 turns. And if the target has more than 2 debuffs, he'll place a decreased defense of 60%. It's a super low chance, 40% when booked. If this is the only guy you've got for decreased defense, go farm a War Maiden. She'll do you a lot better. But as far as campaign farmers go, he does just fine. I've got standard masteries. He's got War Master. Elhain, of course, has the crit damage buff. I don't remember what it's called. Flawless Execution. She's got some extra crit damage. I find that more useful than War Master. More useful than Helm Smasher because it's more standard, it's more consistent. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to do Elhain first. Elhain, she hits hard. All of her attacks do a good amount of damage. She can roll through them pretty quickly with that 200 speed. Almost every time she hits an enemy, she's going to kill that enemy. So her A1, it's going to kill an enemy. Her A2, she's going to kill the initial hit enemy. Just like that. Her A3 is always going to slam down the enemies. So she goes through it. 22 seconds is actually a really good time. I've had her down to about 15 seconds. But that was when I had accessories on to boost her attack. So I kind of took those off because I was like, this is not feasible for everybody. We're going to run it one more time. Because consistency. Now, the thing to remember with campaign farmers is that a lot of it depends on your food. If your food is someone who's going to survive some hits, you're going to see a slowdown. Okay, like I was using Horror Freeze trying to level him up. He kept reviving everybody and he kept surviving these hits. And that slowed down my runs. It's 21 seconds. So, as you can see, she's not slow. Building a sub 30 second campaign farmer, it's very, very easy. It doesn't require a whole lot. Okay, so let's look at Galek. Where did I put him? So Galek, he's not as effective, not as fast as Elhain. He brings some more things to his kit, but honestly, they're so... The one thing he brings is the decreased defense. There are so many other champions that are more effective than him at that decreased defense that he's not a viable decreased defense champion. He's going to be a little bit slower because he's only got the one AoE. He's got that A2 that does the AoE. Even with a higher attack, he's not going to hit as hard as Elhain. Well, part of that is too because his crit damage is lower. So that is making a difference. If you boost his crit damage, drop any accuracy, and just make him a pure nuker, he's going to hit hard enough to clear the waves. But yeah, 43 seconds. That's actually the slowest time I've seen out of Galek. So let's do it again. Usually he is around 30 seconds. This is actually, like I said, really slow. We didn't look at his gear, but I'm 90% sure he's just running lifesteal and speed or maybe perception. I honestly don't remember now. Yeah, he's going to be a little bit faster this time. He doesn't run it as fast as Elhain, but as you can see, I mean, he's tearing through them. They're not doing enough damage to really cause him any trouble. He's fast enough that he gets 2 turns per the enemy's turn, so he's under 30 seconds, which is pretty standard for him. Now let's look at his gear. His gear is nothing special, nothing to write home about. Yeah, so he's running the exact same as Elhain. Lifesteal and speed. Completely doable for anyone who's in early to mid game. Of course, these are legendary pieces, but if you look, there's nothing legendary about them. This is a triple roll on an attack stat. It's nothing. It's such a minimal boost to be pointless. I mean, compared to some other things, like if you really wanted to get like crazy, it would be a crit damage rolls. You would do, speed. This would be an attack chest if you wanted to boost his attack to be a much faster farmer. This has 2 crit rates. So, I mean, really I got his crit rate up way too high. I mean, there's nothing in this gearing is really screaming amazing. It's all pretty bog standard. So, and you see they do sub 30 seconds. You don't really need any better than that unless you're just trying to bust them out really, really quick. But I mean, really, no free-to-player is going to need a 9-second farmer. It's just not necessary. You're never going to have that kind of energy that you're going to want to run through, 1,000 energy in 10 minutes. So there's no point in worrying about that. So, but once again, just like with Kel and Aethel, the stat requirements are super low to get this done. You could probably go even lower than that and get it done even just as fast, or within the range. So it's not undoable for someone in the early game, and that's kind of the point behind this. Well, let's talk real quick. I want to rank them. So I ranked Kel and Aethel last time. I put Kel first because of his utility, but Aethel second because in my mind her utility as well. But let's talk about, with the new champs, who is the best, and does that 1-2 from Kel to Aethel still stand? First and foremost, we're just talking about campaign farming, and maybe let's go ahead, just campaign farming and what they can bring to the table as your champion, your starting champion. So if you were to 6-star them, which I say you should, are they bringing enough to the table that you're going to keep them around? So if you think about it that way, 100%, I wish that I could bring him higher, but Galek is always going to be last place. There's never a point that Galek is going to outdo any of the other 3. He only has 1 AoE. Even with the increased speed, he's not doing enough. He's only buffing himself. The decreased defense is far too situational. The chance is far too low for him to be an effective, consistent debuffer. And then he attacks 1 enemy 2 times. He does not have enough in his kit to make him an extremely viable champion out of early and mid game. So is he a good campaign farmer? Sure, he can get the job done, albeit slower than maybe the other 3. But is he effective outside of that? Once you can get War Maiden, once you get any better attack champion, any better debuffer, he loses out to that champion immediately. So he's going to be last place. Next to the line, let's see. I'm going to put Elhain, and I know what you're thinking, and yes, Elhain I think hits a little bit harder than Aethel. It's easier to build than Aethel because there's no accuracy requirement, but there's a reason why Aethel beats out. Elhain has 2 AoEs, both of which hit twice. This one hits all enemies twice. This one hits 1 enemy twice. Just like Trunda does, it's 1 enemy and then all enemies. It can hit really hard. The increased crit rate, in my opinion, is what brings this down to being less effective than Aethel's kit, along with some other stuff that Aethel has. And then this right here, if it weak hits, you don't get the extra hit. So that also brings it down a little bit. But all in all, Elhain is an amazing champion and well deserving of that 3 spot out of 4. But all things being considered, I think her and Aethel are almost tied for the second spot. Now, speaking of Aethel, she's the one that I chose for my OG account, and this higher blessing ability is what gives her the edge. 100% makes her better than Elhain. Not only does she have a self buff, but she increases her damage immediately before using her ability. Elhain, that increased crit rate, is after using it. This, she's going to start with the higher blessing. She's going to give herself 25% attack. If she's below 50% HP, she's going to give herself some defense on top of that. But that's not all. This right here, she's going to give herself an extra turn, meaning she immediately buffs herself and then flips into Divine Blades. Divine Blades may only hit once, but it hits like an absolute truck. It's going to do a good amount of damage, especially early and mid game. If it's built right, she's gonna hit hard. She has Weaken on her A1, which makes her a really useful champion, along with the hitting 3 times. Makes her really useful for clan boss. It makes her useful in a lot of dungeons. You can use her in Fire Knight. She is a good champion all around, because that Weaken is early on. It used to be a really hard debuff to get, and she's going to hit it at 100% on the last hit. So definitely worth putting some accuracy in if you don't have Weaken any other ways. But if you build her with just attack, she's going to hit insanely hard, and she's going to do it quickly, because this is going to be knocked down to a 3-turn cooldown because of this and because of the extra turn. And then this on top of that is now a 2-turn, because she's going to use it. She's going to use this. This is going to get back up. She's going to have an extra turn, which drops that cooldown down. And then you're immediately going again. She is fast and she is furious. And so that's why I give her that second spot. And once again, her and Elhain are very similar if you're looking for pure damage dealer, but I think Aethel kind of beats her out in overall utility. So, and then finally, let's talk about number 1. I mean, there was really no contest here. And it's just because of his overall utility. Okay, he may have this attacks 4 times at random like Galek, but poison is so useful. Attacking 4 times at random on like, let's say like the on the dragon, that's 4 poisons. You know, he's able to place poisons pretty consistently, which makes him super useful other places. This doesn't hit hard enough for him to be like an effective campaign farmer because of this ability, but you build him right, he's going to hit hard. This ability, it smacks really, really hard. It fills his turn meter for every champion that's killed, which means if you knock out everybody except for like that one person, he's going to go again and take them down. If you're using him in like arena, he's going to knock down a couple of people and he'll be ready to go again quickly. It gets him ready, and this ability hits hard too. Has a 100% chance of placing a poison. So I mean, he's able to go and go and go. He's like the little Energizer Bunny. When he gets that acid rain off properly, it makes him go fast. So, but honestly, I think Aethel has a better turnaround on her abilities. I like using her a lot more as a damage dealer capacity in arena, because he's more useful with his poisons. But if you build him and kit him right, he's going to do a lot of damage, and he can be your nuker, he can be your debuffer. He has so many use cases all the way up until end game, whereas Aethel falls off before that. So that's why he stays at number 1. But so that's those 4. Now next, once I get them built, we will be talking about Bellower. Bellower is going to be next, along with Fellhound. They take a lot more to build and to get them into the realm where they can actually be campaign farmers. They can be a lot faster campaign farmers than the others. But so bear with me while I get those ready. It's going to take some time because I got a lot of people to build. But thank you all so much for joining. I know this was a little bit of a quicker video. I try not to drag it out, but I did want to go over, the campaign farmers for people who are just now starting the game, or are not sure if they pick the right person, if they're going to be able to get them powerful enough to be effective. Because a lot of people are always worried about getting that next great champion. Well, what happens if I don't pull a kill because I chose Galek? Or what happens if I picked Elhain and she's just not farming hard enough? Can she ever get there? Well, of course she can. They all can. So that's the point behind these, and we'll do other videos, like this later on. But thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, I'll take care.